How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, April 3rd, 2022, the final day of the 2021-22 women's college basketball season. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to preview the 2022 National Championship game as this tournament is finally coming to an end. 66 games have been played. There were originally 68 teams, and 66 teams have been eliminated, and now only one team can walk away with this title, as the two teams that are left competing are going to be the UConn Huskies out of the Big East, and the team out of the SEC will be the South Carolina Gamecocks. This matchup is going to be played at the Target Center in Minneapolis after both teams won their final four games here on Friday. But of course, to preview this matchup, I'm going to review how these two teams got here, as even to make it into this tournament, I'm going to look 6 games back into both teams' past to look into why this is going to be a highly anticipated matchup. South Carolina, I'm going to look a little bit further because they ended up losing in the Final Four just last year, so this time they actually got right to the championship. As the only number 1 seed that made it to the national championship game, despite being one of 3 number 1 seeds to make it into the Final Four, South Carolina will go on to end their regular season in the SEC after they ended up winning they ended up losing the last game of their SEC tournament to Kentucky. They actually ended up losing by 2. In their first game of this matchup in this tournament, however, they would face off against 16 seed Howard. This was after Howard would beat Incarnate Word by 4 to play in this matchup. These first 2 matches will be played on South Carolina's home court in Columbia, South Carolina. They were able to beat 16 seed Howard 79-21. They won it by 58 points. This was after they famously outscored Howard 22-2 in both the first couple quarters. They were up 44-4 in the first half. They were even, of course, up 60-8 at the end of 3 quarters. On the winning end of this matchup, the top seed South Carolina Gamecocks were led in scoring by their starting forward, Aaliyah Boston, who ended up being the National Player of the Year. Their junior out of St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands finished with 10 points, 12 rebounds, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Also for South Carolina, their forward off the bench, their freshman out of Ellenwood, Georgia, Sanaya Fegan, finished with 10 points and 7 rebounds in the 14 minutes she played, as she made all 3 of her shots and shot 4 for 6 from the free throw line. South Carolina would go on to play their second and final game on their home court against the 8 seed Miami Hurricanes. This came after Miami beat 9 seed South Florida in the first round on that same court. South Carolina would go on to beat Miami 49-33. They won by 16. They would go on to outscore Miami 23-10 in the first half. That was where they really took advantage. They outscored Miami 13-3 in the second quarter, where they got that real push. On the winning end of the second matchup, they were led in scoring by their center off the bench, Camila Cardozo, their sophomore out of Brazil. She would go on to finish with 11 points and 8 rebounds, as well as 4 blocks in the 22 minutes she played. She shot 4 for 5 from the field. Additionally, South Carolina starting forward, their National Player of the Year, Aaliyah Boston, had 10 points and 16 rebounds in 35 minutes, as she shot 4 for 15. This would be how they made it out of their first weekend. So they would go on to play their next 2 matchups in Greensboro, North Carolina. Playing against a team that was from within the state, they would face off against the 5 seed North Carolina Tar Heels in that Sweet 16 round. And in this matchup against the highest seed that they would actually end up facing in their region, they would end up beating North Carolina 69-61. They won it by 8 after they outscored North Carolina 17-8 by 9 in the second quarter. Every quarter outside of the second, North Carolina had them beat. But regardless, on this winning end of this matchup, South Carolina was led in scoring by their starting forward, Aaliyah Boston. She had 28 points and 22 rebounds, as she shot 8 for 13 from the field and 12 for 13 from the foul line. Their starting guard, Zia Cook, their junior out of Toledo, Ohio, would finish with 15 points herself in this game alongside 2 steals. And then also in this matchup, their senior Destiny Henderson out of Fort Myers, Florida, would finish with 13 points to help South Carolina advance to the Elite Eight. And then, of course, staying within Greensboro to make it out of their second weekend, they would have to face off against 10-seed Creighton in the Elite Eight. This came after Creighton won their Sweet 16 matchup against 3-seed Iowa State. South Carolina would beat 10-seed Creighton by 30. They won it 80-50. They outscored Creighton by 21 in the first half and then by 9 in the second, because that's, of course, how 30 works. South Carolina would be led in scoring in this particular game by their starting forward, Aaliyah Boston. She finished with 19 points and 7 rebounds in 28 minutes. She shot 7 for 9 from the field as she shot 5 for 8 from the free throw line. South Carolina's starting guard, Bree Beal, their junior out of Rock Island, Illinois, would go on to finish with 12 points in 22 minutes. There's South Carolina starting guard Destiny Henderson finished with 12 points and 3 steals in 29 minutes as she shot 5 for 9 from the field. And then also South Carolina starting forward Victoria Saxton, their senior out of Rome, Georgia, will go on to finish with 11 points and 11 rebounds in 21 minutes. She shot 3 for 6 from the field and 5 for 6 from the free throw line. They would make it out of their second weekend there. In the Final Four, they would come into their Friday matchup in Minneapolis, facing off against the 1 seed from the Wichita region, the Louisville Cardinals. This came after Louisville won their Elite Eight matchup versus 3 seed Michigan from their region. South Carolina would beat the other 1 seed in their match, in their matchup by 13 points. They won it 72-59 after they outscored Louisville by 7 in the first quarter, and then they would go on to outscore Louisville by an additional 7 points in the second half. On the winning end, South Carolina would be led in scoring by the National Player of the Year, Aaliyah Boston. She had 23 points and 18 rebounds in 35 minutes. She shot 8 for 12 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 6 for 7 from the free throw line. Of course, Bree Beal had 12 points and 2 steals in 32 minutes. Destiny Henderson finished with 11 points in 38 minutes. Victoria Saxton finished with 10 points in 22 minutes. And then Zia Cook finished with 10 points and 5 turnovers in 22 minutes. That would be how South Carolina would make it here from their side of the SEC, despite not winning their tournament game. They're going to be facing off against the UConn Huskies, who made it into the Final Four for the 14th year in a row under head coach Gino Auriemma. UConn would make it into this tournament as the 5 seed overall after winning their Big East champion tournament game against Villanova by 30. They would play their first matchup in this tournament against 15 seed Mercer. In this matchup, they would go on to beat Mercer 83-38. In this first matchup, they would outscore Mercer 20-0 in the third quarter to outscore Mercer by 25 in the second half after they already had outscored Mercer by 20 in the first half. In this first matchup, UConn would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Kristen Williams. Their senior out of Little Rock, Arkansas, will go on to finish with 13 points and 5 rebounds alongside 4 steals in 28 minutes. She shot 5 for 14 from the field and made 1 of her 2 free throws. UConn starting guard out of Minnesota, Paige Beckers, their sophomore, finished with 12 points and 5 assists alongside 2 steals in 24 minutes. The sophomore out of Hopkins shot 5 for 7 from the field and made both of her threes. Their forward off the bench, Dorka Juhas, their senior out of Hungary, would finish with a double-double for herself. She had 10 points and 10 rebounds in 17 minutes, as 6 of her points came from the free throw line. And then, of course, UConn's guard, Caroline Ducharme, their freshman out of Milton, Massachusetts, would finish with 10 points and 6 steals, as well as 3 steals in 18 minutes. She had 6 rebounds and 3 steals. She shot 4 for 10 from the field, but with this win, UConn would go on to advance to the next round, of course, on their home court. They will go on to beat the 7-seed UCF Knights by 5. This was after UCF won their first matchup against 10-seed Florida on UConn's home court. UConn would beat UCF by 5 after outscoring them by 9 in the second quarter. by a total of 14 points in the middle two quarters. In the second matchup, UConn would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Ozzie Fudd. Their freshman out of Arlington, Virginia, would go on to finish with 16 points and 3 steals and 2 blocks in 38 minutes. She shot 4 for 13 from the field, 4 for 10 from 3, and she made all 4 of her free throws. And then their starting guard out of Arkansas, Kristen Williams, finished with 12 points in 34 minutes. She shot 3 for 9 from the field and made 5 of her 6 free throws. That'll be how UConn made it out their first weekend. They would actually stay in the state of Connecticut for the Sweet 16 round as Bridgeport is their region in this bracket is in Connecticut. In their first matchup in the Sweet 16 in their second weekend, they would face off against 3-seed Indiana after Indiana beat Princeton in the second round. UConn beat Indiana by 17. They won it 75-58. This would come after they outscored Indiana by 9 in the third quarter, by 13 in the second half as a whole. In this matchup, UConn was led in scoring by Kristen Williams out of Arkansas and Paige Beckers out of Minnesota. Williams finished with 15 points and 6 rebounds in 32 minutes as she shot 7 for 11 from the field. Paige Beckers finished with 15 points in 33 minutes as she shot 7 for 17 from the field. Their starting guard, Ozzie Fudd, finished with 13 points in 35 minutes as she shot 3 for 11 from the field and made all 4 of her free throws. UConn starting forward, Olivia Nelson-Ododa, their senior out of Winder, Georgia, will go on to finish with 10 points and 14 rebounds and 2 steals in 30 minutes as she shot 5 for 9 from the field. With this win, UConn would advance to the Elite Eight, and in their regional final, they would knock out the 1 seed from their bracket, the 1 seed North Carolina State Wolfpack, and make it so that the Final Four was not just full of 1 seeds. UConn would go on to beat NC State in 2 overtimes, and by a total of 30-26 in those overtime periods. They would win this game 91-86. To, of course, make it out of the Bridgeport region, to win all 4 of their tournament games in the state of Connecticut before eventually going to Minneapolis. UConn would be led in scoring in this Elite Eight matchup by their starting guard out of Minnesota, Paige Beckers. She finished with 27 points and 6 rebounds in 45 minutes. She shot 10 for 15 from the field and 6 for 7 from the free throw line. Their starting guard, Kristen Williams, finished with 21 points and 5 rebounds as she shot 9 for 22 from the field and 1 for 2 from the free throw line. Their starting other guard, Ozzie Fudd, would finish with 19 points and 5 rebounds in 49 minutes. She shot 7 for 16 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and made 3 of her 4 free throws. And then, of course, their starting forward, Aaliyah Edwards, their sophomore out of Kingston, Ontario, will go on to finish with 10 points and 2 steals in 39 minutes as she fouled out. She shot 4 for 8 from the field, and of course, she would help get UConn into the Final Four. In the Final Four, the UConn would have to face off against the team that came out of the Spokane region, the defending champs, by the way, the Stanford Cardinal out of the Pac-12. In their matchup versus their first 1 seed of the tournament, they would end up beating Stanford 63-58. They won it by 5 after outscoring Stanford by 4 in the second half. On the winning end of this Final Four game, UConn was led in scoring by their starting guard, Paige Beckers. Their sophomore out of Hopkins, Minnesota, would go on to finish with 14 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 5 turnovers in 34 minutes as she shot 7 for 13 from the field. UConn's guard off the bench, Avina Westbrook, their senior out of Salem, Oregon, will go on to finish with 12 points and 6 rebounds in 31 minutes. She shot 3 for 9 from the field as all of her makes came from 3. She was 3 for 5 from 3, and she shot 3 for 4 from the foul line as well. Additionally, in their starting lineup, their guard, Kristen Williams, had 10 points in 33 minutes. She shot 3 for 13 from the field, and she made both of her free throws. That is, of course, how the 2-seed UConn Huskies would make it to the national championship game. And now they are going to be slated to face off against a very solid South Carolina team that has really been tested at every single level. But I don't think that I think it's going to be very tough for UConn to really knock South Carolina off, and I think it's going to be tough for South Carolina to knock UConn off. Only one team can win this championship, and this game starts at 8 o'clock on ESPN, and by about 10:30 tonight, we will have a new champion, as, of course, the defending champions Stanford have been knocked off, and they can no longer repeat. And then, of course, once this championship game is done, I'm going to come back tomorrow with a championship profile for the team that wins. And, of course, congratulations to both teams that made it this far. It's a very tough road, and all both teams have is one last game. Only one team can win, and only one team can lose. But thanks for listening. I do want to thank the ESPN and NCAA websites for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed. And once I'm done with everything for today, once every exhibition and matchup for today has been played, I'm gonna come back tomorrow on Monday, April 4th, for another episode as we move through the world of sports one day at a time. Thanks for listening. I hope all is well. Today is Sunday, April 3rd. I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite. Thanks for listening to my piece. I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace out.